back to our session. Am I audible, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Now see here, we will continue. Now we will see here the blood vessels. My screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay. Now see here the blood vessels. The heart pumps the blood into the vessels, isn't it? The heart pumps the blood into the vessels. Now 5 main types of the blood vessels are there. Which are those? That one, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, vein. Now see here, arteries, the most large vessel we called as arteries. Again, it is divided into smaller, that is called as arterioles. These arterioles, small blood vessels, it is divided again in a minute blood vessels that we called as a capillaries. These supplies the oxygenated blood to the tissues. And venules means what? Whatever the capillaries, that capillaries returning back from the tissues. Listen carefully, these capillaries, small capillaries. Are you getting my point? These all capillaries that are returning back from the tissues. That is the group of capillaries within a tissue that reunite. Mute yourself, all of you. The group of the capillaries returning back from the tissues that are reunite, that are joined, and that forms the small veins. That small veins are called as venules. And that venules again reunite to form the veins. Are you getting? Arteries and veins. Arteries carries oxygenated blood. These arteries, it is the big blood vessel, divides into arterioles, again redivides into capillaries, minute blood vessels. Okay, minute blood vessels. These capillaries from the tissues, they are reunite from the tissues and forms the venules. These venules combine to form again the big vein. Now we will see the difference between the artery and vein. But meanwhile, we will see the structure of the artery and vein. Okay, the wall of these, it consists of 3 coats, or we called as a tunics. That is the tunica intima or tunica interna. Middle one, that is the tunica media, and the innermost, that is the tunica adventitia or tunica externa. Now we will see here the structure of the artery and veins. Okay, tunica adventitia, that is the external layer. Innermost, that is the tunica intima, and the middle one, that is the tunica media. This is an artery and this is the vein. What you are seeing the difference between this, the main difference, that is the artery carries the oxygenated blood and vein carries the deoxygenated blood. Here morphologically, lumen of the vein, it is more in size, and lumen, it is small in the artery. Are you getting here? Walls are present in the vein and walls are absent in the artery. Okay. And again, we will see here the difference. What we can see the difference, thickness, it is more here in the artery and less here in the vein. Now see here in detail, that is the difference between the artery and vein. Arteries carries what? Arise from the heart and carries the blood away from the heart. Arteries, from where it will start? It arises from the heart and carries the blood away from the heart, that is arteries. And veins means what? The blood vessels that brings the blood from all over the parts of the body towards the heart, that is the vein. So that's why the deoxygenated blood it carries, and it carries the oxygenated blood. Okay, the arteries are thick walled and veins are the thin walled. Okay, it do not have any type of the walls, but it carries the walls. Veins carries the walls. Artery does not carries the walls. Okay. Tunica externa or adventitia, it is a thick walled. Okay. All the walls are thick walled. The lumen of the artery is small. You see in here. Okay. And the lumen of the veins, it is very spacious. That is the large. And what is the exception here? Before only we seen in the last session, artery exception, pulmonary artery. All the arteries carries which type of the blood? Oxygenated blood. But except the pulmonary artery, because this pulmonary artery carries the deoxygenated blood. And exception here, the pulmonary vein. All types of the veins carries which type of the blood? Deoxygenated blood. Okay, but here the pulmonary veins carries the oxygenated blood, because these pulmonary veins are coming from the lungs when it is oxygenated and then comes into the left aorta, left auricle. Okay, these are the carrying oxygenated blood. Okay, only the pulmonary veins. The exception is there. You remember this one. Okay, you keep in your mind. Okay, blood in the artery shows the high blood pressure. Pressure is high in the arteries and pressure is low in the veins. Okay, now we will see the next slide. Pumping action of the heart. Now we will start here the cardiac cycle or the conduction system of the heart. This is the main topic. This is the main part, the pumping. Unless and until the heart pumps, it pumps throughout our life. If it will stops, we will stop our life. So throughout our life, this is the God creation, good creation. So life long, throughout the life, the heart pumps. That pumping action we called as a heartbeat. That pumping action we called as a heartbeat. It contains what? Systole, diastole. Systole means what? It is the contraction. And diastole means what? Relaxation. How many heartbeats are there? 72 per minute. 72 beats per minute. Okay. So it pumps about 5 liters of the blood per minute. 5 liters of the blood per minute. Because how it calculated? 1 beat 70 ml of the blood it output. So 72 times per minute, calculate this one, approximately 5 liters of the blood per minute. Okay, now see here, we will continue this one, conducting system of the heart. This is the main part of this one, working of the heart, how the heart works, how the heart beats, how the cardiac cycle originates. Now 5 parts are there, 5 events are there, that is the SA node, AV node, bundle of His, that is the His bundle, then right and left bundle branches, Purkinje fibers. These are the 5 parameters or parts of the conducting system. Now listen carefully. I am explaining this diagram, through this diagram. First, the SA node means what? The sino-auricular node, the action potential, that is the impulse generated through the SA node. SA node, where it is present? This SA node is present in the right auricle. Where? Where it is present? It is located just below the superior vena cava, just before the opening of the superior vena cava. We also called as this one, that is the pacemaker. This we called as a pacemaker. When the impulse generated through this SA node, the auricles, see here, the impulse conducted both these one auricles. So that's why what happens when the impulse generated this SA node, from this SA node, both the auricles get contracted. When it get contracted, the contents of this emptied into the ventricles, respective ventricles. Means both the auricles get contracted through the action potential of the SA node, impulse generated from the SA node. And when both the auricles contracted, what happened? The deoxygenated blood comes into the right ventricle. The right auricle contracts, it comes into the right ventricle, and the left auricle, it contains the oxygenated blood, comes into the left ventricle. Now see here the miracle. This SA node, after this FSA node, the impulse conducted, transmitted to the AV node. Impulse transmitted to the AV node. It is in between the auricles and ventricles, but just right side of the heart. Right side, that is the in the auricle only. Okay, little bit. It is in between. Okay, but more towards the right side of the auricle. This SA node impulse, this impulse transmitted from SA node to the AV node. And what happens? After that one, AV node, it transmits the impulses to the bundle of Higgs, where it is present in the vertical septum of the ventricles. Okay, and then it is divided into the right bundle branch and left bundle branch. Okay, and again it is transmitted to the Purkinje fibers, that is the dividation of these bundle branches. Means how it is transmitted? First, the action potential generated into the SA node. Okay, then comes to the transmitted to the AV node, and then it is transmitted to the bundle of Higgs, and then it is transmitted to the right and left bundle branches, and then to the Purkinje fibers. So that's why when it is grouped, when it is impulse together generated the action potential, the ventricle starts contracting. The ventricle starts contracting. Now, are you understood this one, the pathway? Just 5 events are there. SA node, then to the AV node, then transmitted to the bundle of Higgs, then to the right side and left side of the bundle branches, then to the Purkinje fibers. Then in detail, we will see here the conduction working. Okay, these divides into 5 parts. Are you understood? SA node, that is the sinoauricular node. AV node, that is atrioventricular node. AV bundle or bundle of Higgs, right and left bundle branches, and then the Purkinje fibers. Okay, so we will see here the cardiac cycle, how it originates, how it runs, how it works. The events which occur in the heart during the circulation of the blood, it is called as cardiac cycle. It is known as the events, that is the action potential. It is just the action potential during that circulation of the blood that we called as a cardiac cycle. This cardiac cycle, it is 0.8 second. How we will see the arterial systole, arterial diastole, ventricular systole, ventricular diastole, we will see. But here, just again, we will overview. That is the SA node. SA node means what? The heart action originates in the special type of the myocardium that is called as the SA node, where it is situated near the opening of the superior vena cava in the right atrium. It is also called as a pacemaker. The wave conduction starts from the SA node and that conducted through the atrial myocardium. When it impulse generated in the SA node, what happens? The atria, the auricles will get contracted. That we called as a atrial systole, atrial systole. And next it transmits to the AV node. When it contracts, when it transmits the SA node to the AV node, the impulse generated, what happens? See here, the waves transmitted to the another node. Which is that one another node? AV node, where it is situated in the atrioventricular septum. In the atrioventricular septum. And then it is transmitted to the AV bundle. And then it is transmitted to the right and left bundle branches. Okay. And then it is transmitted to the Purkinje fibers. The bundle of Heaths, the Purkinje fibers conducts the wave of contraction from AV node to the myocardium of the ventricles, and that's why when it generates, when it transmits, both the ventricles will get contracted. When it contracts, the right ventricle, when it contracts, its contents transmitted the blood from this pulmonary artery to the lungs, and the left side of this aorta, it transmits the oxygenated blood from aorta to the all over the body. This is overall the conducting system of the heart. Now we will see now we will see here again, when there is a ventricle systole. Now listen carefully. There are four parts. That is the systole, auricular systole, ventricular systole, auricular diastole, and auricular diastole. Okay. Systole means contraction and diastole means relaxation. When there is ventricular systole, there is no wave of contraction over the atria. Means ventricle, when the ventricle contracts, the atria will get relaxed that time only. Okay. Hence, there is a atrial diastole. At a time, the impulse will not generate. So, when there is a ventricular systole, there is a atrial diastole. And vice versa. When there is atrial systole, there is a ventricular diastole. When there is atrial systole, the ventricle relax. That is, it shows the ventricular diastole. Are you getting my point? These are continuously, the impulse are continuously. So that's why the heart beats throughout the life. That is, the atria contracts simultaneously. So also relax simultaneously. Contraction, relaxation, contraction, relaxation, dub, love, dub, love. And the same happens in the case of the ventricles. Means atrial systole and ventricle systole and ventricle diastole. Means four events are there in the cardiac cycle. That is the atrial systole, atrial diastole, ventricular systole, ventricular diastole. Atria contracts, atria relax, ventricle contracts, ventricle relax. Okay. Systole contraction, diastole relaxation. These four events occur repeatedly, periodically, cyclically. Okay, in the heart. Thus, the heart beats continuously. So that's the heart beats continuously throughout the life. The cardiac muscle get rest only during the diastole. That is the relaxation, only during the diastole. The contraction of the atria, that is the short time. But ventricles contracts longer duration, and that also more forcefully. It requires 0.8 second for one beat. That is the one cardiac cycle means one beat. Thus, in a minute, 70 cardiac cycles takes place in the adult. Okay. One beat, that is 0.8 second. One cardiac cycle, the time required for the one cardiac cycle, that is the atrial systole, atrial diastole, ventricular systole, ventricular diastole, that is the 0.8 second it requires. So per minute, how many cardiac cycle takes place? 70 cardiac cycle takes place. That's why 70 beats per minute in adult. Okay, see here the diagram. Atrial systole 0.1 second, ventricular systole more forceful, it prolongs, it is more than the atrial systole, that is the ventricular systole lasts for 0.3 second, and the complete cardiac diastole, that is the atrial diastole and the ventricular diastole, that is the joint diastole, it requires 0.4 second. Complete cardiac diastole, that is the joint cardiac diastole, that is the atrial diastole and ventricular diastole, it lasts for 0.4 second. So calculate this one, 0.1, 0.3, 0.4, that is the one cardiac cycle, it lasts for how many seconds? 0.8 second. Okay, how many second? 0.8 second. So working of the heart, again we will repeat this one systematically. See, listen carefully. The events associated with one heartbeat. Before only I explain. One heartbeat, that is the one cardiac cycle. One heartbeat, it is called as a cardiac cycle. One cardiac cycle. It lasts for how many seconds? 0.8 second. Each heartbeat includes what? Cardiac systole, ventricular systole, and joint diastole or complete cardiac diastole. This is the cardiac cycle. Arterial systole, this ventricular systole, and complete cardiac diastole, that is the joint cardiac diastole. Joint cardiac diastole, atrial diastole, and ventricular diastole. We will explain here again very nicely. So listen carefully from the first. See one by one. Atrial systole. Events, how many? Atrial systole, ventricular systole, and joint diastole, or it is also called as a complete cardiac diastole. Now we will see the atrial systole. Atrial systole means what? Contraction of the atria. When the SA node generates the impulse, the atria will get contracts. Both the atria, that is the right side and the left side. Means what happened during this atrial systole? The deoxygenated blood will get enters into the right atrium, enters into the this atrium. This deoxygenated blood from the right atrium, that right atrium, when it will get contracted, these emptied their contents into the right ventricle. Okay, and the left side of this, which one? Left auricle, it contains the oxygenated blood. This emptied their contents into the left ventricle through what? Through the walls. We explained before only. The tricuspid wall, it is present in the right side, and the bicuspid wall is present in the left side. Okay, so atrial systole, when the atria gets contract, they emptied their contents into the respective ventricles. It carries, it lasts for 0.1 second. It lasts for 0.1 second. Now see here the ventricular systole. Second one, that is the ventricular systole. Systole, that is the ventria when it gets contracted. Means what happens? During the ventricular systole, the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle, it will enters into the pulmonary trunk, okay, pulmonary artery, and that carries the blood to the lungs for oxygenated, to get the oxygenate. And this oxygenated blood from the left ventricle enters through the aorta to all over the body. Okay, means all the ventricle, when it get contracts, the right side of the ventricle blood will carries to the pulmonary artery, and the left side of this ventricle It supplies the blood to the aorta. Okay, this ventricular system or this ventricular systole last fall system, no, it is systole. Okay, it is the systole. Ventricular systole last for 0.3 second. Okay, and this black flow of the blood, it is prevented by the semilunar valves. Semilunar valves means pulmonary trunk, it is having pulmonary wall, and the aorta contains the aortic wall. Okay, so next one, that is the joint diastole or complete cardiac diastole. It lasts for how many seconds? 0.4 second. It lasts for how many second? 0.4 second. During this joint diastole, diastole means what? Complete relaxation. Means what? Joint diastole. Both atria and ventricles undergo relaxation. But what happens in this relaxation? In this relaxation, both atria and ventricles gets relaxed. How many seconds? 0.4 seconds. At that time, the atria receives the blood. The right auricle receives deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body through the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and coronary sinus. We will discuss in detail the coronary sinus in the coronary circulation. Okay, meanwhile you remember this like this only, keep in your mind like this only. Coronary sinus means deoxygenated blood from where? From the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and coronary sinus to the right atrium, and the left atrium receives the oxygenated blood from the lungs via the pulmonary veins. Okay, this is the joint diastole. Though it is diastole, relaxation, what happens? The auricles will get filled. The auricles will get filled through the blood by the blood. Okay, filling of the auricles takes place in the joint diastole, complete cardiac diastole. Now see here the regulation of the cardiac activity. How it takes place? The nerves, the main center. Who is the main center? How the control of the body takes place? In the brain. All over control. Hand to hand, it is controlled by endocrine gland. Okay, no doubt. But main control, the all controlling center is present in the brain. So that's why the cardiovascular center lies in the medulla oblongata of the brain. Okay, this CVS center also lies in the brain. Where? In the medulla oblongata of the brain. The normal activities of the heart are regulated by the autoregulation. A specialized muscle that is called as a myocardium. We also called as a myogenic. All the activity takes place in the myocardium, the middle layer of the heart, isn't it? Myocardium. Sino-auricular node receives the, it is innervated by the, any problem? Anyone have any queries? You keep with you a notepad or pen. You write down your queries. We will see here. After that one, we will solve your questions. Okay. So adrenaline, see here, the sino-auricular node receives the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. The sympathetic, it transmits, it secretes which type? The adrenaline and noradrenaline, isn't it? And the parasympathetic nerves secretes acetylcholine only. So adrenaline stimulates the heart and the acetylcholine, it depresses the heart. Okay, two types of the nerves innervates to the SA node. Which type of this one? The sympathetic nerves and the parasympathetic nerves. Sympathetic, it secretes the adrenaline. Okay, and the parasympathetic, it secretes the acetylcholine, and adrenaline stimulates the heart and acetylcholine, it depresses the heart rate. This is overall the cardiac cycle. This is overall the cardiac cycle. Now we will see the blood circulation. See, understood this one? Cardiac cycle, all of you, it is nothing but see the three events, that is the atrial systole, ventricular systole, atrial systole 0.1 second, ventricular systole 0.3 second, and the complete diastole, that is the 0.4 second. Okay. So overall, this combinedly we called as a cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle, conduction of the heart system. Are you understood? You can remember this diagram. According to this diagram, we can explain very nicely. 5 parts are there: SA node, AV node, bundle of His, right, left, bundle branches, Purkinje fibers. What happens? The impulse generated in the SA node first, okay, and then it is where it is situated in the right auricle, just below the superior opening of the superior vena cava. Then this transmits the impulses to the AV node, and then it transmits to the bundle of His, and then it gets transmitted to the right and left branches. It divides into right and left, and then again it is divided, that we called as a Purkinje fibers. When SA node it stimulates, then what happens? The atria will get contracted. When atria will get contracted, their contents will drop into the respected ventricles, and when the ventricles contract, their content, it is thrown to the right side into the right pulmonary artery, and left side of the ventricle thrown this content into the aorta. Okay, this is overall the conduction of the system. It is one bit, that is the one cardiac cycle, that it lasts for 0.8 second. The heart is working continuously, that is per minute. How much? 70 to 72 beats per minute. 70 to 72 beats per minute, and one bit it thrown 70 ml. According to that calculation, 5 liter of the blood per minute. Okay, this is overall conduction system of the heart. So here only we will stop. Understood this one, conduction system? Again our Zoom meeting will close. So what happened? We will see again the next session, afternoon session. We will study the circulation system, the blood circulation. 4 types, 5 types, the circulations are there. We will see that one: pulmonary circulation, the systolic circulation, portal circulation, and coronary circulation. Okay, understood this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we will meet soon in the next session, afternoon session. Till that, we will take a break. Okay.